Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be showing you a couple methods of painting Jade with contrast paint and washes in preparation for Cathay coming out for the old world. Whether you're painting your Jade Warriors or your Jade Lancers, I think the cavalry is called, or whoever, there's going to be Jade featured, or there probably will be Jade featured. And so I have done a bunch of experimentation with how to get a good looking Jade color out of simple contrast paints and washes. I'm sure the heavy metal team did a fantastically complicated method of getting Jade to look cool, and more power to them. Anyone who wants to paint like that, awesome. But if I'm trying to crank out an army in a couple weeks or maybe less, I want a quick and easy way to do Jade. So that's what we're going to do today. I've got 4 different methods for you today, and I'm going to go get all my paints ready to go, and we'll get started. Alright, so the first method that we're going to go with is one that is the closest that I could get with contrast paint to the color you see on the box art for Cathay. So we're going to start with Eldari Emerald contrast paint. And today I'm just going to cover the entirety of these miniatures in these colors. That way you can see how these color combinations work on different things. For example, maybe you don't want to paint your armor the Jade color. Maybe you want your cloth to be the Jade color. So just thought I would show across different materials and different textures what these colors will look like. And so again, this is as close as I could get to the box art color. Obviously, they did a more traditional painting style of, edge highlighting and shading and all the things, but trying to achieve that with just simple 1 coat, or in this case 2 coats of contrast paint. So the Eldari Emerald is one of the newer contrast paints, and it goes on magnificently, as you see. Obviously, contrast paint works the best over textured surfaces, but even on the smoother bits here, it goes on awesome. So I will finish this up and let it dry, and then we'll come back and put our second layer on. Alright, so our Eldari Emerald is all nice and dry. And now we're going to go on to our second layer, which is going to be Coelia Green Shade. And again, we're just going to apply this all over the miniature. And this is going to be the closest that I could come with just 2 layers to the color that they have on the box art miniatures. It's not exactly correct, but it's pretty close. And I think especially from 3 feet away on a table, I think it would look pretty good. So that pretty much, well, not pretty much, that is the end of this one. Now we will go and move on to our second layer. And of course at the end I will, not second layer, sorry, our second method. And of course at the end I will line them all up once they're all dry and you can see them, and then you can decide for yourself what you're going to do on your own miniatures. Alright, so for our second method, we're going to start with Karandras Green here. And this is, for me, probably the method I will be going with for my personal Cathayan models. This does not really look like the box art at all, but it looks to me the most like how I picture Jade in my head when I think of Jade. It's this nice, super rich, super vibrant green color. And with some Googling, I discovered that you can have Jade in all sorts of different colors. You can have it really pale, almost blue. It can be this vibrant green. It can be a dark green. It can be all sorts of different things. But for me, this is what I think of as the stereotypical Jade color. So again, I'm just coating the whole model in Karandras Green. I'll let that dry, and then we'll come back and put our second layer on. All right, we are back, and our Karandras green, that's a hard word to say, is all nice and dry. And just like the first method, we're going to go on to Coelia green shade. And again, just apply it all over the miniature. And this sort of bluish green of the Coelia green shade, I think combines really nicely with the brighter green of the Karandras green. One of my combinations I tried was this with the Striking Scorpion that we used, or we will use later. But the Striking Scorpion was just too bright, too almost yellow, and combined with this bluish green, it just didn't look good. And so I toned it down a little bit and went with this Karandras instead. Get this all over. Don't want it to pool too much in any one area. All right, and there we go. Again, I'll put pictures of all of them up at the end. But for now, I'll put this aside and we'll move on to scheme number 3. All right, so for our third method, we're going to do a more muted jade color this time. And so I'm going to start with a more muted color. And in fact, not even a contrast color, just a shade in this case. Croak green. And just as before, we're going to put this all over the miniature. I thought I would include one of these, one of the more muted tones, just to show you what is possible and how varied you can have your jade looking. And, you know, to be honest, I tested probably, I don't know, total combinations. I probably tested 30. Maybe a little less than that, maybe 20, 25. And this is just my personal taste, the 4 that I thought looked the best. But, I mean, you can take pretty much any 2 contrast and shade colors and slap them together and get a color that looks cool and that you want to use on your miniatures. Nothing says that the color has to actually be jade or even what is possible for jade to look like in the real world. If you just like the color combination, then you can do it. But I will let this dry as usual, and then we'll come back and do our second layer. Alrighty, so our croak green is all nice and dry, and now we're going to move on to Beeltan green. This is a much more traditional green than the Coelia green shade that we used on the first 2 methods. But this, combined with the croak green, I thought gave a really nice finish. So I'm just going to apply it all over here. And of course, I should have said this earlier, but you could, of course, stop at a single color. A lot of these colors look just fine on their own, and so they could just be your jade color. But I just wanted to take it a little bit further. So I'm doing 2 colors on each. And that's mainly just so that I don't paint. I'm trying to think. I may not have ever painted jade on miniatures before. Actually, that's not true. I painted Lord Croak as a commission, and I think there's some jade on him. However, I have used all these colors on miniatures many times. And because this jade is such a unique thing, I don't want it to just look like every other time I've used Striking Scorpion or every other time I've used Karandras green. So putting this second layer on gives it a little visual difference from the other times I've used this color. And for me, that's important. It might not be for you, but for me it is. So again, I'll let this dry and then we will get it in the final lineup. But for now, we will move on to method number 4. Alright, so we're back for our 4th and final jade scheme this time. And we're going to do Striking Scorpion green for this one. And this is going to be the brightest green that we use today. And this, to me personally, doesn't really look much like jade. But because it's so vibrant, I thought I would include it. Because I think even if it looks the least like what I think jade looks like, it could look really cool on an army. A lot of the times, these like super bright greens are reserved for like the lizardmen, maybe the orcs, but not usually. It's typically lizardmen where you find these bright greens. And so to do this bright green on a human faction, I think would be pretty cool. There's a lot of interesting choices you could then make with the secondary and tertiary colors, using this as your main color. And so I think that could be a very interesting direction to go for an entire army. Like I said, I don't think this looks as much like Jade as the others, and I wouldn't personally choose to use this on my army, but you might, and so I thought I would include it. So I will make sure that this first coat is applied all over the miniature. I'll let it dry, and then we'll come back and do our second layer. Alright, so our Striking Scorpion green is all nice and dry. And again, we're going to go back to Bealtan green, just like in Method 3, and cover the miniature in this. And there are also variations, of course, that you could do. So you could thin out one of these second colors, and that would give your overall color a little bit of a difference. You could do that even miniature to miniature, so that all the Jade didn't look identical across the whole army. You could even, you could vary the schemes even. You could use scheme 1 for some and scheme 3 for another, or, you could do all sorts of stuff with it. These are just my personal preferences, the ones I liked the most, and the ones that certainly would be in the running for consideration for my own Cathay models. I'm pretty set on scheme 2 for mine, or method 2. But you never know. I kind of like this one also. So we'll see once the Cathay models are actually in my hands. We'll see what I end up doing. But that is it for the fourth method. So right about now, you should be seeing all 4 of the miniatures lined up. And you can go ahead and compare and see which one you like the most, or if you don't like any of them, maybe you try a different combination that I didn't show in this video. Or if you really like one of these, feel free to use it. If you want to see more videos like this, feel free to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you on the next one.